So it appears as though episode 73, Know When It's Enough, was kind of fortuitous, or maybe a jinx. All those Chromis that we took to the fancy cylinder tank, not only have most of them expired by now, but they all ended up with that red sore disease. This is very common with Chromis. I don't know enough about medications to really identify it. I did treat the fish here, both with a product called Revive, which deals with bacterial issues, as well as a copper-based medication. Got those into the tank, and they started one at a time winking off. The problem is whatever that disease is now spreading to the other fish. I've lost the raccoon butterfly. I lost the hybrid lemon peel angel. I lost one of the golden butterflies, which is an expensive butterfly. I believe the second one, when I was there just the other day, has a big red sore on its side. And my concern is that big fancy Imperator may also end up with an issue. Part of my frustration, and the reason for this particular episode, is, again, I don't know enough about bacterial issues. I do and am capable of resolving parasite issues, but when it comes to bacterial issues, I don't know. I'm totally lost, and I'll be the first one to raise my hand and say that I'm lost when it comes to those particular issues. We went online, and I came up with a handful of forums with everybody and their dog's opinion, ranging from catch the fish and take them back out to add a UV sterilizer. There was no definitive information, certainly no good suggestions as to how to resolve it. The other information I found on the internet was primarily for aquaculture, dealing with food fishes. So today's episode is kind of to try to help add some more information to, we'll call it the Chromis damsel red sore issue. I did end up reaching out to my fish wholesaler, who has indicated that the problem is a bacteria, Euromycin or Euronemia. I'm not sure. I have to go back and reread the email, and he has offered to provide us with some medication, formalin, which needs to be administered every day for about 3 days. He said it's strong stuff, and again, I don't know enough about it, so I'm going to rely on his knowledge to help guide me through this. So I have to admit, it's a little embarrassing to tell you that my pride and joy, the fancy cylinder tank, with all the significant triumphs that we've had over the last year and a half, has developed a pretty significant bacterial issue. But I look at it this way. LA Fishguys is an aquarium reality show. I'm trying to show you exactly what happens to aquarium service people as they try to take care of all these different people's aquariums. It's not always that easy, and regardless of how knowledgeable you are, there's still issues that occur. So with that in mind, I'm going to show you what problems that we actually ended up with, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to attempt to resolve it. Because the bottom line is, it's too fancy a tank, too good a service customer for me to not be able to solve the problem. Besides that, I myself and the rest of us all need to understand what causes this problem and how to resolve it. So what we're going to start doing is a 100-gallon water change in that tank. I'm also going to put the activated carbon back in the tank to try to remove the current medication that I have in there, because a lot of times different medications will conflict with each other. Once I've got the carbon in the system, it'll start removing all of those previous medications. It'll clear up the water because it's quite yellow, because that's what the medication does to the water. We're also going to, by diluting whatever's in there, as well as using the carbon, which will remove that medication, then tomorrow we're going down to the fish wholesalers as our normal every other Thursday trip to buy fish anyhow, and they're going to give us some insight as to really what the problem is or what caused the problem, and he's also going to help provide me with answers and hopefully the medication as to how to resolve it. So come on along today on LA Fishguys as we resolve a bacterial issue in the fancy cylinder tank. Now, while we're on the topic of medications, one of my two biggest frustrations in the aquarium hobby, and I've been playing around in the aquarium hobby since the early 80s, is there's no good source of information or guidance in regards to medications or nutrition. Most of the foods that are offered these days, flake foods, come out of the aquaculture, the freshwater fish industries. There are some new frozen foods that have higher or better nutritional value that are coming to market, but there's no real clear guidance. It's all just suggestions on people's part, which in the case of a lot of resellers is based upon some reason for selling a particular product. The second thing, as I mentioned, was medications or diagnosis. There's a few packages of medication on the market with very general diagnosis, and their package is kind of a full spectrum version. The alternative is to try to look it up in a book. I know of three books. One's relatively new, I'll admit. I haven't looked at it yet. Seems to me at one time I did glance through it when I first got it, and I'll make it a point to do it tonight just to see if it does address this, what I'm going to call the Chromis damsel red sore disease. But the two books I'm thinking of, one of them is probably one of those skinny little quarter-inch thick books that again just gives you generic or general diagnosis, and it may reference some particular medication that you've got to seek out a pharmacist to get. The other book is a really thick book that's well over $100, and I don't know many hardcore hobbyists who even own it. So I've always felt that there was a shortage of information in regards to nutrition as well as medication in the fish hobby. But we're going to rely upon our wholesaler's suggestion and the fact that they're going to be able to point us in the right direction or provide us with a proper medication to resolve this. I do have to chuckle what research I did find on the internet were silly comments, things such as you need to put a UV sterilizer on there, or one of them was cussing out the tropical fish store. I mean, let's face it, I'm not trying to defend the retailer, but a lot of times they may not have all the answers, and they're not necessarily responsible for having those answers. It would be helpful, and it would certainly be of a great service to their customers. But beyond asking a retailer whether he knows or not, the answer is still elusive, because even on the internet, which is one of the greatest things that's occurred to mankind in the last 10,000 years, the answer isn't there. I mean, I was able to put in Chromis damselfish red sores, and I just came up with anecdotal information, nothing that really was conclusive or gave me an idea as to what specific medication to use and how much to use. So anyhow, this is new venture, and again, I don't know the answer to this particular one. I've mentioned I can deal with parasite issues, but when it comes to bacterial, there are potential issues. I mean, a lot of antibiotics, which are what are used for bacterial issues, also affect the bacteria in your biological filter. So you may cure one issue only to cause another. So if you don't know what you're doing when it comes to antibiotics and treating for bacterial issues, be careful. So hopefully this particular episode, we'll all learn something. So you can see here the yellow tint to the water. This is the results of the medication that we've got in there. Now, there's the Imperator. She might have had a tiny little red sore, but it's this remaining golden butterfly. And it's on her other side. She's the one who's going to be the most difficult to resolve this Euronemia situation with. So be sure to come on back for part 2 as we start prepping the tank for the medication by doing a water change, a large water change in the tank, to see if we can resolve this problem before it gets out of control.